Hi, everybody. It's Laurie White with the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, back with episode number 174 of Chamber TV, continuing our discussion with the candidates seeking elective office in November. And today we are joined by James Lathrop. And James is a Republican, and he is running in the contest for general treasurer here in the state of Rhode Island, and he would be succeeding incumbent treasurer Seth Magaziner, who, as we all know, is running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District. So with that, how are you, James? It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm well. It's a beautiful day here in Rhode Island. I wish I was at the beach, but this isn't too bad of a place.
Okay, well, this will we'll make this one fun for you, so you'll
Good.
feel like you're at the beach. Anyway, tell us your backstory. We're interested in hearing all about your accomplishments. I know that you're very involved in government and public affairs and politics in North Kingstown. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm currently the finance director of North Kingstown. I've been here for 5 years. I've been in government for approximately 15 years. I worked in Portsmouth, Westerly, the City of New London, Connecticut. I live in South Kingstown, Rhode Island with my wife. I have a grown daughter who lives in Philadelphia. Prior to that, I was a CPA. I'm still a licensed CPA. I had a practice in Connecticut. We had 2 offices, had an opportunity to sell, and I had other business interests. I was in the self-storage business as well as movie theaters. My family owned a trash business. So I have a good business background. I went to Bryant University. I have my master's degree in public administration from New York University. And I was the Providence Business News CFO of the Year a couple years ago, the RIPAC Goodrich recipient award for distinguished public service to Rhode Island taxpayers. And I think my accomplishments is really what my message is about. I'm not about what I will do. I can tell you what I have done. Doubling the fund balance here in North Kingstown, reducing our OPEB, which is a healthcare liability similar to a pension, earning AAA ratings in Portsmouth, the second community. I'm a guy who gets into the weeds. I'm not a politician. I don't think the treasurer's job is really that political. It doesn't have any policy making, but it is an important job, and it's something that I feel has become too political, and that you need someone a little bit more technical skilled, considering the size of the money that they handle, as well as the importance of the position.
Thank you for providing that background. So tell us about the Providence Business News CPA of the Year. Where were you? Where were you working at
Yep.
that time?
Yep. So I was working here in North Kingstown. It was actually CFO of the Year, and it's based on my history, increasing fund balance, reducing liability, keeping our taxes low. Some of the programs that I've introduced is some diversity here in North Kingstown. We issued bonds, and what I've done is use a program for minority women and veterans, so that we could use smaller investment firms that maybe wouldn't have an opportunity to handle some of our money. They matched the low bid, and what they did was they got 25% of the total $27 million offering. In this case, it's the CFO of the Year award was really about my career as well as recent accomplishments.
What do you see, James, as being the most prevalent issue confronting the next general treasurer?
I think it's the pension. I think we need to find a way to bring back the cost of living increases or the COLAs. For too long, people, they've had their pension frozen for over 10 years now, when we have inflations of 8 and 9% currently, and they're still getting the same amount. That's a major issue. I also think some of the programs that the Treasurer's Office offers needs to be expanded, particularly Rhode Island Able. It's a program that I think gets little resources. And what it does is it allows people who have disabilities and are collecting Social Security benefits that their family or friends can provide some assets without affecting their benefits. It's a great program. Mr. Magazina has been very generous to me, despite that I'm a Republican and he's a Democrat. I've met with him and his chief of staff. I've met with his overall staff at his operations center and different individuals. And I know like that program has just one person managing it. I think that is something is important. And I also think bringing some diversity within the office of treasurer, looking around, I think that can be done. And as well as training people to be involved more in government. One of the people asked me things that I'm proud of. Three people who have worked for me, either as interns or actually employees, are now finance directors in other communities in other states. It's about inspiring people to move forward in their career and giving them the opportunities. I always tell them, I may not give up my seat for you, but I'll find a seat for you that's similar if you really want it.
Talk a little bit, if you will, about the MERS system and specifically what you perceive as the issues in the City of Providence around OPEB and around the unfunded liability for those pensioners. And of course, that situation has been greatly exacerbated by a couple of Supreme Court rulings, which in fact has tied the city's hands. Don't know if you've been following, what's been happening with Mayor Alorza and his pension obligation bond, but would appreciate your thoughts on that since it is a central issue.
I think it was a desperation move. I think it was, um, pushed by the unions. It gets money into the pension fund so that when Providence does file bankruptcy, and if they move forward with this program, I've said it before, Providence will file bankruptcy. There will be the second community. It protects those funds. It wasn't about protecting the citizens of Providence. It was about protecting a small group who seem to be unwilling to compromise for the good of the whole. Providence has one of the more generous pension plans. They're not in the MERS system. Um, there needs to be change. There needs to be hard decisions. One of the nice things about if you elect me is I don't owe anybody anything. I'm not beholden to anybody. And I don't plan to further my political career beyond the treasurer. I don't have any aspirations beyond that. To me, the treasurer's position is the brass ring. It's how I want to end my career. And my wife has also made it very clear to me while she was okay for me running for treasurer, if I have any aspirations, we will have to have a very frank discussion. And that's something I don't want to have. I love her very much. And yeah.
So the issue around what's happening in the city, those Supreme Court rulings basically said that nothing can change relative to what the pensioners are entitled to. It's locked in perpetuity. So that was, some of the issues, and that happened. Those contracts and those pension agreements were created a long, long time ago under other administrations. So it makes it hard for the next series of mayors to really get ahead of that.
Well, I think, if you take the long-term approach to it, while you may not be able to address the current pensioners, I think it's the people who are in the system now that you need to change their benefits so that moving forward, so that you have a plan. So as those pensioners come off the list and you get new pensioners, their benefits are going to be different. I know it's hard to take that. Why did this person get it and I'm not getting it? Well, life's not fair at times. We need to realize that. And if you're truly committed to your community, this is what you need to do. Providence is not going to be just a problem for the city of Providence and its citizens. Providence is Rhode Island in many ways, and it's going to affect so many other communities. We look at what we have to contribute now to the pension funds because of what the state does. I know here in North Kingstown for public safety, for every dollar that I pay them, I'm paying 30 cents into the pension fund. That's ridiculous. How many of your employees give you a 30% of your pay in your 401k or in a pension plan? No one does that. And there needs to be real change. And I think one of the issues with the treasurers and how the Democrats had set it up is that eventually it will sunset, but we're getting to about 2033 where they figure that COLAs will come back on the state level. I would not be objective to extending that date and allowing some COLAs now. Maybe it's not the full 100% that they seek, but maybe it's a 50% cost of living increase so that people can afford gas. They can go out and afford food. They can afford to take their families just to the movies. It's outrageous of what the costs are, and it impacts everybody. So if I don't have those funds, if I'm paying for gas, I can't be shopping in the local stores. We have to make decisions. We do it on an everyday as individuals. The City of Providence needs to do that, and the unions need to understand that and do it also.
There's been some discussion about what the appropriate level of funding of a pension plan should be. What are your thoughts on it? So, we have Providence in the 20s, among the lowest
Yeah.
anywhere in New England.
Uh,
Do you
yeah,
think?
I always would like to say 100%, but I think realistically, if you get to that 80% mark, you start to get into the comfort level. Um, the markets are going to be tough over the next few years, and I don't think you're going to see real growth. I was disappointed that the legislation this year did not, considering all the additional funding that they had, use some of that funding to shore up the pension funds. I thought, honestly, it was a bit disrespectful when the governor mentioned that he wants to offer a tax credit for those who aren't getting their COLAs, but he'll get you next year. Well, I don't care about next year. I'm talking about now. And that's what people understand, that they're suffering now. Um, you know, the legislation argues about issues of, mandating parking spaces closer for people who have children under 3. That is not what our government should be about. It should be about helping the people, addressing real needs. And that's, people are frustrated. They're tired of that. They're tired of the bickering. I'm a pretty moderate guy. A lot of people question. I had a question like, "Are you really a Republican?" And I am. I believe in fiscal responsibility. I consider myself more of a Reagan Republican. Um, for those who are a little bit my age, Alex P. Keaton. I grew up watching Family Ties. He was a Republican, but he had a heart, and that's the type of person I am. And not to say that Republicans don't have a heart, but I think we need to be more moderate. And on both sides, even on the Democrats, that they need to learn to be more moderate so that we find some common ground in the middle to move Rhode Island forward, to move businesses forward, to move individuals forward.
Are there any other communities, James, that you're watching carefully, worried about their particular finances around pension and OPEB?
Well, I think it's just overall, I think Coventry and the fire department out there, as well as that community, um, has some potential issues going on. Um, right now, most of the communities, because of ARPA, are flush with money. Here in North Kingstown, we maintain cash balances of between 45 and $60 million on a regular basis. But part of that is, how do you manage that? Every week, I'm moving funds to maximize my investment returns. Since I've been here, even when rates were higher, they were earning very little on the interest rates. Um, I go to the banks and negotiate rates and play them against each other. And when you can pick up $200,000 or $300,000 of investment income, that pays for a police officer, that buys a couple police cruisers, that pays for a teacher. And that's what the treasurer needs to do. They need to manage the funds better so that the politicians and the policies that they want can be implemented. It's all about the money. At the end of the day, it's the economy, it's the money. And without resources, you're not going to accomplish anything. And the treasurer's office can help that, and so that the legislation knows that they have the funds to make the changes that they need.
Would you do anything about the way the state's pension funds are presently invested, the investment management
I would
process?
be a little more transparent with some of the investments. I'm concerned about some of the private investments that aren't publicly traded stocks or bonds and how they value those. I those are something that scare me. We look at Tidewater, I think is going to be another failed attempt by Rhode Island. And it should fail right now because the developer isn't willing to make some adjustments that we can't take all the risk and all the burden. But I was reading an article that the developer of Tidewater owns another soccer club that actually has a heavy investment by the Arizona pension plan. Um, we do not want to be taking those kind of stuff. I'm a conservative guy. My own portfolio. I like stuff that pays dividends, that is secure. I don't want to take a lot of risk, even for the pension funds for Rhode Island. Their target goal is to make 7% a year. You don't need to make 12 and 15%. Going back to baseball, which I'm a big fan of, is the teams that win, get men on base. They hit singles, they do the walks. Home runs are great, but there's also a lot of strikeouts when you're looking at home runs. And I think that's what the pension fund has become, that they've looked for a lot of home runs, and this market has been great for them. Anybody could have made money over the last few years, but now it's going to become difficult, and you need someone who has that understanding of the market and how investments work. So, to answer your question, I really would um, stop using some of the private placements as well as some of the hedge funds and some of the investment managers that they're using currently.
How do you feel about the various green bonds and the sustainability objectives that the SEC is potentially going to put forth relative to disclosure? Do you think the fund should be proportionally invested in those types of products, or as you said, is it really it's about the money? It's about the
It's about the money. If we can do good, but at the end of the day, my job is to maximize the return for the state of Rhode Island. You know, and debt can be used in a different way. One of the things that I don't think the state has looked at enough is the social impact bonds. I know they've been used out in the Midwest to fund pre-K education, because the theory is as you get children into the schools earlier, you lower your special ed costs later on, and you use that savings to pay the bonds. They're much like a TIF. Um, but in these cases, if it doesn't work out, you don't have the responsibility to pay back the money. That creative thinking is what I'm going to bring to the treasurer's office, is that our first goal is education. I know that I got to where I am now only because of my education. My father had an 11th grade education. He was a smart man. He ran a business. But at the end of the day, he believed in education. He didn't want me working on the trucks. He wanted me to go to school. My mother the same way. My sister is a principal in an elementary school. We believe in education, and we think that's a primary goal of what the state should focus on. And it's not just traditional education, it's the trades, it's financial education, and it's not just for students, it's for adults and seniors who are struggling, that we need to provide the education for them. And that would be a big policy and objective of me through the treasurer's office.
So we only have a couple of minutes left, but I did want to ask you about another important aspect of the treasurer's office, and that's the administration of the 529 college savings plan.
Yeah.
Thoughts on how you would approach that? Any modifications that you're looking at?
I like the plan overall. One of the things that I learned recently was that the fees that the state earns from the 529 plans are used to pay for the free education at CCRI. And while that's a good program in general, I believe, as I said, I believe in education. I don't think people appreciate stuff that is free. There needs to be some work in it. For myself, when it came time for college, I joined the Army. I was in the Army for 6 years prior to going to school, or with going to school. And I figured out how to pay for it without going into debt. If I'm doing the right thing and investing in the 529 plan, and the state is making fees and then they're giving those fees to someone else who's not doing anything, I have an issue with that. I'd rather see you give the fees back to me, so that I have a better return. And those would be changes that I would do. And to disclose that. How many people know that when you're investing in the 529 plan, from Rhode Island or even from another state, Rhode Island makes a fee on that transaction, which that they're now using to fund the people who are not saving like you are in preparing.
So as we wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity to let folks know how they can find you, how they might reach you if they are interested in supporting your campaign,
So,
making a donation.
so I have a website. It's www.lathrop4ri.com, and the 4 is actually spelled out. You've got it up there. Thank you. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You can call me. My website has my phone number on it. I'll be probably the one picking up the phone. We'll be opening up an office hopefully shortly in the next couple of weeks. Fundraising, we've started that. We're going to have a couple of events. We're going to do a motorcycle ride. I'm a motorcyclist. I found a kickoff point in Smithfield. I've come out against assault weapons, but I do believe in the Second Amendment. We're going to have a game dinner. I know as a Republican, it's hard in Rhode Island, and I have to, make myself a little different. I'm not going to do the same old things because that's not who I am. Many people have seen my little ad for myself that is me playing a banjo. I started to learn to play the banjo. My wife gave me one for Christmas. I have a Facebook page. Reach out to me. I still work in North Kingstown. The town has been very generous. They allow me to take some leave without pay as I campaign and use some vacation time. But stop by the town hall if you want to see me. And I'm out and about. So that's how to get a hold of me.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for spending time with us today, James Lathrop, Republican candidate for General Treasurer. So we will see you leading up to the November election. If you're interested in coming back on Chamber TV to talk about other things that you're seeing along the way, please feel free to reach out.
I would love to come back and especially talk once know exactly who I'm running against on the Democratic side.
Okay. Consider it done.
Yep.
James, thank you. Have a great day. I hope you get to the beach.
I'm going to try, but today is the Republican convention, so I think I'll be there this afternoon and this evening.
Okay, well, we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.